about that when we get to the second page, but on this first page, you can see that we have a 46 student enrollment. At the middle school, we have a total enrollment of 627 students. And at the high school, we have an enrollment as of that first day of 711.
I talked to John Friday night, and he said the freshman class is already up to 200, so I'm sure we're going to see a little bit of an increase in that number.
We have. It's up to 714 now.
It is, okay. I do have one question for Carl. What is the capacity for these two buildings? I guess we'd have to include the modulars, but with the modulars, do we have the capacity to serve this number of students in the high school and the middle school?
Now, I'd really need to talk to the
Okay.
principals about that. I don't have the number
Okay.
off the top of my head.
If you could do that for, maybe when, I think Kathy, you come back in October with the official enrollment numbers, is the ones we have to submit to the state.
After October 1.
Right, maybe Carl, when Kathy comes back with that, because, you know, the numbers are, especially at the middle school, they're getting big. And I look at what's coming up here next year, which is a fifth grade class of 254 students. I don't know how many we lose to Austin Prep in a year in the sixth grade, but I don't think it's an enormous number. So that number next year, we're gonna be close to 670 kids at this school. That seems to me to be a lot of students for this facility. And again, getting back to our earlier discussion, I think that needs to, be made clear when we do our feasibility study of the district.
We have a total enrollment then, as of the first day in the district, of 2,686 students.
Compared to what, is it
Last year,
2007?
2,735.
Wow.
Wow.
So I took a look at
Wow.
5 years, and from 06, 07 to 10, 11, we're down 126 students.
What was the high point of that, Kathy?
It was in 07, 08, and it was 2,812 students. Yes.
And so the interesting thing is, you might be sitting out there saying, oh, if we're down 49 students, we should be able to cut some staff. But no, if you divide it over 5 schools and
That's right.
13
enough.
grades,
It's not enough.
it's nowhere close to enabling us to cut anything.
Well, now
So-
that you mention that, I'd like to note that we have 35 fewer preschool students. So if you add that 35 to the
Oh, there you go.
2,686, we have 2,721.
Okay, so,
So we know right away there's a significant impact in one small area.
right.
And that's a tuition-based program for typical
Now, that was
students.
the question I had.
Why?
Do you attribute the decline in enrollment to the tuition?
Well, I think we need to do our homework on that, but I think it has to do with the preschools not being in the neighborhood schools.
Centralizing, that's
They've
right.
Centralized it.
Did we have them at all 3
That's
previously?
just a guess.
We did last year.
All 3 schools last
I
year?
believe so, yes.
I think
That's one
I think that's a
issue,
good guess as to why one of the reasons we lost some students, which is obviously something then you'll be looking at in terms of what we do
Absolutely.
next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you said we're down 35 in that?
We have 35 fewer preschool students this year than
That's a
last
lot.
year. So if we look at the second page, now you have some more detail around those enrollment figures, particularly at the elementary level. And so you can see how that breaks out in terms of the numbers of classrooms at each grade level in each of the schools and what the specific classroom size is in each of the schools for each of the grades. I'm not sure if you have any questions about that.
Well, you can see the concern, I see 22, 23 for a full-day kindergarten, and some people might say that's fine. I think that's a little high. And then I see a couple of the 26s at the batch in the 5th grade,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of the 24s in, grade 2 at the hood.
It's always been an issue with, the class size, and it's almost across the board, always fewer kids per class at the little school. And it's not enough to require like a
Redistricting,
redistricting,
right.
but it's always that way, that they have the smaller class size.
Right.
So,
Interesting.
But
Yeah.
you can't, it doesn't really justify redistricting, and then you
Well-
can't put 2 teachers, for example, in the 5th grade, because then you
no,
get 33
no,
kids.
It's,
So
it's only reflected in grades 2 and 4, really, if you look at it. Maybe grade 1.
Kindergarten too.
The kindergarten for sure,
Mhm.
sure.
Mhm.
But it's just that 2 to 3 students per class that it's always seems to be a little bit lower at the little school.
And when you look at those two half-day kindergarten sessions at the little school, one with an enrollment of 14 and one with 13, if you just offered one a half-day session, you'd now have 27
Right.
students, which is entirely too large.
Right.
So there comes a point of no return when you have to
Yeah.
divide the group.
I mean, sometimes I look at the kindergarten and I'm not sure it's worth it, but you ask yourself, for kindergarten purposes only, couldn't you assign them to schools to balance the class?
But the kickback would be huge from the parents.
Oh, yeah, I think we kind of tried to do that, and it doesn't,
Well, some of them may go along with it, I don't know.
We do that with full day.
Yeah.
right.
They cap it and they say, and they have a lottery in place at all three
So
schools.
if you wanna go full day and after
Right.
the cap, then you
Right.
have to go.
But you know what might happen, Jerry? If we did that, we might see the same situation there where they'd say, I'm gonna send my kid to a private kindergarten, and then, so,
No, I'm just throwing it out because they see
No, I
a
know.
real disparity there. I mean, you've got a
Whatever happened to
13 versus a 23, you know?
well, and then you look at the grade 4 at the little, and you say, wow, 19, 18, 19, 19. But you don't wanna cut a teacher, and
Well, you can't.
if you have 3 classes of 25, you live with it, but you don't wanna force yourself to have 3 classes of 25.
But yet at the hood, you have a 24, 24, 23, you know?
Right.
I mean, the hood's changed too, because we used to have 4 sections and almost, of course,
Yeah,
that
the
was
hood-
before the
the hood-
batch.
right.
Just the developments are increasing on that side of the town.
But the batch has the,
Well, the batch was designed to accommodate that number of students, and I think 4 sections for each class. The only exception there is the grade 3.
yeah, and the grade 5 at the batch gives me some concern. I mean, I don't know what we can do about
See,
it,
but
but,
if you look at grade 3 at the batch, you could have done 4 classes of 23 there too.
Yep.
You really could have. I mean, considering the others are all
But that
22.
just seems like a one-year step, because if you look at the fourth grade class.
right, the
going
4th
to
grade,
that,
next year, they'll,
No, it's
next,
hard to get a handle
They're
on.
trending lower
It's hard to get
after
your
this
hands
year.
around it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you look 4 through kindergarten, they're trending lower. And so what if you add another person or two from town, still under what you are in fifth grade this year?
Yep, okay.
and,
My issue is the hood seems to be trending higher
what do you mean, in terms of,
in general.
well, grade 1, though, the hood, you get 19, 17, 19.
I mean, you've got the 24s in
Got
grade
grade
2.
twos.
That's the high.
You got
Right.
grade 2s and 4s and kindergarten.
Right.
So it seems like every other year.
What are we trying to figure out here?
Well, I think we're just looking at, we have goals.
We know what the class size is.
No, we have goals as a committee of
I know.
what sizes. I mean, the only ones that are really, I think grade 2, I think our goal is 20, isn't it?
I was going to ask you, I've
It
been
is
trying to locate what
don't know
the
exactly.
recommendations are for
I
class
thought
size.
first and second was 20 and then 22 for grades 3 through 5, but it's not that far out of whack. It's pretty close.
22, 20, and 3 through 5.
I thought
It's 22, I think.
yeah,
I think.
but I think we would like tolerate up to 25. And then once we saw 25, I wonder where those goals are, because they've always been spoken goals. I don't have any you have any
Well, I was
documents that,
searching for them and I was wondering if there was something written down. I'll continue to look.
you know who would know?
What about Maureen Bach?
Maureen Baca
The
would
rule
know.
of thumb was 22 though.
Maureen would have those somewhere.
I've seen those.
They're,
Have you-
they're probably imprinted in
Yeah, in her
already,
brain.
so it's.
Well, I'll be meeting with her soon, so I'll ask
I
her.
think she purged herself of all that stuff when she left the school.
Really?
committee. Yeah.
No, she's kind of sad.
Since
She
we're talking
misses
about
us.
enrollment,
Except you, Jerry.
has either the school committee or the administrative staff addressed the issue that we ran into last year? Because I don't want to be here next spring addressing different parents
Oh, with
with
the
the same
lottery.
situation with the lottery.
Remember, you were gonna, the lottery for kindergarten, where parents with
District.
siblings at the school
Different schools.
were forced to send the sibling to another school for kindergarten. And they came before us, and they actually sent several emails after that.
Yes, they
I
did.
think was it the Hood School?
It was the hood school that it happened at.
And the request was, if you're going to do a lottery, fine, but can't we get first priority
Well, it's
since
not a
we have,
lottery.
well, but since we have,
It's a two-stage lottery.
it just seems, but it seems sensible to
common
me.
sense.
Right, if you have a sibling at the school,
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think we have consensus that that's
so
a
that
good
was,
thing to do, but.
that was the issue.
Plus,
But
we-
it's tuition-based for that second half.
Right.
Everybody
problem.
has access to a half-day because we are required by the state to provide that. Full-day K is not required.
Right, but it doesn't make sense to bring everyone in and then do a random lottery and send kids all over the town. when there are siblings in the same school, you know what I mean?
Right,
So if I have a kid in second grade, and then I get into the full-day program, and you're telling me now I've gotta drive all the way to little school to drop my kid off.
At a different
And then
time.
pick up the other kid,
Mm-hmm.
and my PTA duties are now split amongst two schools, I'm not gonna do it.
Right, but if I'm understanding correctly, and I want to make sure.
Sure.
If there are more students than there are slots, then there's a lottery.
Right.
And you're telling me that's not the end of it, that if you didn't make the lottery, then you need to go to a half-day. You now have the option, if you didn't make the lottery for the school, where you had to go to another school.
Right,
And that's where the problem arose.
correct.
Right,
The
but there
problem-
is no consideration for that
right, for those
other
that had
sibling.
siblings. I don't understand why we can't have a policy, not a policy for the school committee, but within the administration, that says if you have a sibling, you get first priority for full day.
It makes total sense for the parent.
I
that
don't
has to
understand,
pick them
I
up
don't know
they
if there's
need to.
anything that says we can't do that. It just seems to make perfect sense.
It doesn't make any sense not to do that.
Right, and that's where the problem is, and they're basically picking names out of a hat.
Right, randomly,
Yes.
when it comes to where we're gonna assign the slots.
Right,
Well, then why don't we develop a two-stage sampling strategy? I mean, this is what I do for work,
That's
so
what I would
why
like
don't we
to
just
know.
come up with a
It
calculator
has to
and
be a
figure it?
two-stage sample.
It has to be, yeah,
Either that or fix the lottery.
that's nice, Jerry.
fix the lottery, so like with the NBA, you
Yeah,
have,
so-
you have,
so-
your
yeah.
son's name is in there 15 times,
Yeah.
your son's name's only in there once.
It
Kathy,
was
do
a
you want me to make you a
fiasco.
calculator?
voting like
You
that.
can play with it to see if it actually works.
Sure.
We
'Cause
should
it
do,
might not work. I'm
Patricia
saying.
Bullitt oversees early childhood, so I'm going to bring her
That-
into this
so
conversation.
that includes kindergarten also?
It was
It's
a
not just pre-K?
controversy
Yeah, it was a
last year.
controversy
We had a
last
few
year,
parents in here.
but they
screaming
also
about
sent
it.
a lot of emails
Yeah.
that you didn't get.
Well, that's why I don't get emails.
But
I'll
you
talk to
blame
him
them?
about it
I
too.
mean, if
No,
there's
I
an
don't.
emergency
of course not.
situation and you
Couple
have
of
to pick
times.
up your kids, you've gotta go to two schools now?
See, I don't think I don't think that's that big of a deal, but what I do think is we should address it ahead of time so we don't have
Right,
that.
Exactly.
That's all, I think that's all we'd like
Mhm.
to have you look into before next year's lottery.
Absolutely.
It's a big deal when you try to pick up your kid
Right,
in two schools at the same time.
Right.
Well, it's
And you
two
can't
schools
be in
generally
two
at
places
different
at the
times.
same
So
time.
the
Some
policy
same.
subcommittee has a priority.
there you go,
I'm
there's a
gonna put it on-
priority for the
I'm
policy
just
subcommittee
gonna
to start
put it
looking
on
at.
here.
All right.
All right,
I have no problem addressing that.
Good, okay, very good.
state NCAS results, I know you can't say much, Kathy, but.
Did you want to hear about the grade 8 to grade 9
Is it good?
transitions?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for
For the
enrollment, yeah.
enrollment. We had 32 students not attend ninth grade that had been previously attending our schools in 8th grade, and that represents a 14% impact. Last year, it was 20%.
Yeah, it was almost 20% last
Yeah.
year.
So it's still averaging, over many years, a 12% shift. It's still about 12%.
And I think I briefly mentioned this to you, but are there any studies that show what impact a new building has on that transition?
Yes, that is part of the calculation that was done by the MSBA enrollment design specialist.
Okay.
And what they do is they call it a survival rate from one grade to the next. And they calculate a 3.3% survival rate based on all the data that we submitted to them. They calculate that into coming up with that final design enrollment.
Because I really do think with a new school, you do retain
Well,
more
just the
kids.
turf field alone
I think
reduced
that-
it by 30%.
Well, I
from
mean,
20 to-
exactly. We went from 20% down to
Yeah,
14%
yeah.
because we have a turf field.
'Cause
You
of the
asked a
turf field.
question about 8th grade, and I can tell you that 15 students this year left, not 8th grade, I'm sorry, when
sixth
students
grade,
leave.
5th to
From
6th.
5th to 6th, we lost 15 students.
Mainly to Austin Prep,
to
right?
private schools, mainly to Austin Prep, which represents a 2.4% of the total enrollment. And it's, over the last 4 years, the lowest was 1.4% in 08-09, we lost 9 students, and the highest was 2.7%, and we lost 18 students in 09-10. So,
It's total enrollment of fifth graders, correct?
Right.
yes, of 5th graders.
So those are pretty small numbers.
Yes.
And those are students that we probably would have lost to Austin Prep when they went into the 9th grade before Austin Prep had the 6th grade. So we probably would have lost, And do you have one last question, do you have a breakdown on where the ninth graders are going?
Yes.